Thanksgiving had always been one of the holidays I loved most. It wasn't only about the food, though that was definitely a highlight, but more because of the traditions. Every year my mom hosted dinner, and despite the chaos that came with preparing everything, the house always felt warm and alive. The scents from the kitchen, the laughter, the clatter of cutlery, it all made me feel safe, loved, and grounded. But this year felt different from the start. I didn't even realize how much I'd been looking forward to Thanksgiving until that morning. Work had been overwhelming for weeks, and the idea of finally sitting with my family felt like the perfect break from all the stress. The thought of joking around with my siblings and stuffing myself with way too much food actually boosted my mood. While getting ready, I texted my mom to ask what time I should head over. I figured 4 p.m. would be ideal, late enough to finish my errands, early enough not to miss anything. She replied quickly, "4 is great, see you then." Nothing seemed unusual. I was excited, maybe more than I'd admit. I finished what I had to do and checked the time. 3:45 p.m., perfect. I drove toward my parents' house, thinking back to past Thanksgivings, the memories almost comforting enough to make me smile to myself. But even as I drove, there was this faint, nagging feeling I couldn't quite shake. Something felt off, but I pushed the thought aside. I told myself it was just leftover stress from work. This day was supposed to be a break, not another thing to worry about. When I pulled up to the house, the familiar smell of turkey and mashed potatoes drifted through the cold air, almost like a welcoming hug. But the moment I stepped out of the car, something seemed strange. There were no cars in the driveway. My family usually showed up early, helping with food and hovering around the kitchen. It was always loud and lively. Now, nothing. I stood there for a moment, confused, before heading to the front door. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked louder this time, still nothing. My pulse quickened as a knot formed in my stomach. Where was everyone? I pulled out my phone to send a message, but before I could even type, it vibrated with a text from my mom. "We thought you'd be late." I froze. I read it again, trying to make sense of it. What was that supposed to mean? Before I could reply, another text came in. This time from my sister. "We couldn't keep waiting." My stomach dropped. None of it made sense. They wouldn't start Thanksgiving dinner without me. We always waited for everyone, no matter how late someone ran. That was the whole point. Feeling unsettled, I pushed the door open, it wasn't even locked, and stepped inside. Instead of conversation and laughter, silence filled the house. The dining table told the whole story. The turkey partly carved, side dishes half gone, used plates left out. They had already eaten. I stood there, stunned, staring at the leftovers of a meal I was supposed to share with them. The realization hit hard. They'd gone ahead without me. No call, no check-in, nothing. My chest tightened, but I refused to let emotion show. I turned around and walked straight back outside. Reaching my car, the weight of everything settled in all at once. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact they didn't wait, or that I discovered it through a couple of texts. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, anger pushing back tears. I sent my mom one final message. "I guess I'll just find something else to do." I drove off with no destination in mind, just needing distance. There were plenty of places I could have gone, but I didn't want to see anyone or explain anything. Eventually, I ended up at a quiet park, parking near an empty bench. It was cold, but I needed the space. Thanksgiving was supposed to be about closeness and family, but now it just felt like I'd been pushed aside, completely overlooked. I sat there staring at nothing while people passed by without me really noticing. My phone buzzed again, my mom calling this time, but I didn't pick up. Part of me wanted answers, wanted to know why they started without me, why they didn't bother to check if I was okay. But the other part of me couldn't bear to hear whatever excuse was coming. If I was on my way, but the anger was too raw for me to even consider answering. My thoughts were tangled and heavy, and I didn't trust myself to talk without breaking down or blurting out something I couldn't take back. The phone buzzed again, a text from my sister this time. "Mom's really upset. Please come back." I stared at the message, completely stunned. Upset? After everything that had just happened? My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles strained. It felt unreal. I had every reason to be angry. It genuinely felt like my family had just erased me from the picture, like I didn't matter enough to wait for. I thought about all those years of us gathered around that table, laughing, teasing each other, sharing stories that later became family jokes. All those memories suddenly felt hollow. I typed out a response, something sharp and honest, but before hitting send, I froze. I wasn't ready for a conversation. I didn't even know if I wanted one, so instead, I did the only thing that felt within my control. I blocked their numbers. It felt harsh, but I needed space, and I needed silence. I sat on that bench as the sun sank. Behind the horizon, streaks of orange and purple spilling across the sky. The cold crept deeper into my clothes, but I didn't move. My mind kept replaying the scene, the empty house, the half-eaten food, the texts that felt like afterthoughts. Eventually, when the chill became too much, I decided to leave. But driving home, the same question looped through my head. What happens now? Would they try again? Would they even care? Or had I become a footnote in their day, something they'd already moved past? When I finally stepped inside my own place, I tossed my keys on the counter and collapsed onto the couch. My phone vibrated, a voicemail from my mom. I hesitated before listening. Her message was short, shaky, an apology, but not one I fully trusted. Please, can we talk? We didn't mean to hurt you, we just thought you weren't coming. Call me when you can. I didn't know how to process it. I wasn't ready to forgive, not even close. But part of me, the part that still cared, wanted to understand, wanted some kind of explanation. Still, I didn't respond. I just lay there, wrapped in the same cold feeling that had followed me from the park, wondering if things between us would ever go back to how they were. The days that followed felt strange. Thanksgiving came and went with no real effort from them to reach out, nothing beyond a few half-hearted messages that stopped soon after. The silence between us grew thicker, heavier. I'd catch myself glancing at my phone, waiting for a call that never came, and slowly it dawned on me. They were waiting for me to make the first move. They expected me to fix it, but I couldn't. The hurt was still too fresh, too deep. Then, 3 days after Thanksgiving, a new message lit up my screen. From my mom, "Can we meet? I need to talk to you." No apology this time. No acknowledgement of the damage that had been done. Just a cold, flat request. I stared at it for so long my eyes blurred. Was she finally going to give me answers? Or was this just her way of smoothing things over without actually addressing anything I couldn't tell? But I did know that I needed clarity. Some kind of closure. So I agreed. We picked a small cafe in town. My heart raced the entire drive there. The idea of sitting across from her again made my stomach twist, but there was also a tiny thread of hope inside me. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe something could still be salvaged. When I walked in, I saw her immediately, sitting by the window with her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She looked nervous. I hadn't seen her like that in years. I approached and sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt thick, almost suffocating. Finally, she broke the silence. "I know you're upset," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry, I should have waited. But it's not what you think. We were worried you weren't coming, and the food was getting cold." I didn't respond. Her explanation felt thin, like a layer of paint covering a crack. It didn't change the decision they'd made, to move on without me. And I couldn't shake the thought that if they had truly cared, they would have called. They would have checked. "I didn't want to hurt you," she went on, her voice cracking slightly. "We just assumed you were too busy, or something came up. I never meant for it to end up like this." I sat there, unsure whether I believed her, unsure what to say next, unsure if anything could make the hurt disappear. I watched her carefully, trying to read her expression, but instead of feeling reassured, a slow frustration started building inside me. It didn't feel like a real apology, more like a carefully crafted excuse coated in guilt. I didn't want her guilt. I wanted to understand why she hadn't thought to call me, to check if I was on my way, to make sure I wasn't left out. It wasn't missing the meal that hurt. It was how effortlessly I'd been overlooked. The silence between us stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Just as I opened my mouth to finally respond, my phone buzzed. It was another message from my sister. I unlocked it, expecting some heartfelt apology or acknowledgement of what had happened. Instead, I read, "Mom says you're there. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We just want to move on." My stomach twisted. Move on? Move on from what? Me? Did they really think all of this was something to sweep under the rug, that I could just pretend it hadn't happened? I stared at the text, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I had no idea what to even say. I looked up at my mom, who sat there watching me closely, like she was waiting for whatever words would come out of my mouth, bracing herself for them. "I don't know what to say," I whispered at last. "I thought we meant more to each other than this." Her expression fell instantly. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "We do," she insisted softly. "I promise we do. We just didn't know how to handle it." But I didn't know if I believed her anymore. I didn't know if I could trust any of it. That heavy sense of being forgotten sat between us like another person at the table, reminding me of everything I'd been feeling since that day. Her hand stayed on mine, her grip tense, almost desperate, as if she was begging me silently to forgive her, to let this go. But I couldn't. Not yet. There were too many words I'd swallowed over the years, too many moments where I'd bitten my tongue just to keep the peace. And now everything was rising to the surface, all at once, like a tide I couldn't stop. I drew in a breath, ready to finally tell her how deeply I'd been hurt. when the cafe door swung open. My sister walked in. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on us, and she marched straight over, her expression unreadable. She slid into the seat beside our mom without even acknowledging me. For a long moment, the three of us just sat there in a thick, frozen silence. This wasn't the reconciliation I had imagined. It wasn't warm or comforting. It felt cold, distant. I felt like a stranger sitting across from people who were supposed to know me best. Then my sister finally spoke. "I don't understand why this is such a big deal," she said flatly. "We all know you're usually late. It wasn't personal." I blinked, stunned. Was she serious? Was she really trying to make this sound trivial? As if I'd overreacted? As if this was all my fault? "It's not about being late," I said, my voice shaking. "It's about how you all went ahead without me. You didn't even check. You just moved on, like I didn't matter." Her expression twitched, just slightly, before she folded her arms across her chest and looked away. "We didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's just dinner. Just dinner." Those two words made heat flood my face. How could she reduce everything to that? To food? Thanksgiving wasn't just a meal. It was tradition, connection, family, and they had erased me from it. I pushed back my chair and stood up. The legs screeched against the floor. "No," I said sharply. "This isn't just dinner, and it's not something I can pretend didn't happen." My mom looked up quickly, panic flickering in her eyes. "Please, can we just—" "No, Mom," I cut in. "You had a chance to make it right. You didn't. I'm tired of feeling like the extra piece in this family. Like I'm always the one who has to accommodate everyone else. I deserve to matter too." The words poured out of me, raw and unfiltered. And for the first time in years, I didn't hold anything back. It felt both terrifying and strangely freeing. Silence swallowed the table. My sister wouldn't look at me. My mom stared down at her hands, her face drained of color. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe an apology, maybe understanding, but I got nothing, just blankness. Then my sister finally spoke again, her voice slicing through the air. "So this is all about you?" she said, her tone sharp. "Seriously? You're making yourself the victim. You walked out. You made everything dramatic. And now you're blaming us?" I stared at her, completely stunned. "You think I'm making this about myself?" I managed, my voice trembling with disbelief. "You think this is nothing?" She shrugged, cold and dismissive. "You're exaggerating. Life doesn't stop because you're late. We had to eat. You were probably busy anyway." Her words felt like a punch. Just dinner. Probably busy. Move on. It was like she refused to understand, refused to even try. My fists tightened under the table, anger surging through me. "Are you honestly saying that I should just get over it because you couldn't be bothered to care?" I hissed. My mom shifted like she wanted to say something, but she stayed silent. The weight of that silence pressed in on all of us, suffocating. And suddenly, I realized just how alone I truly felt sitting there with them. The weight of the entire conversation seemed to rest solely on my shoulders. I was just about to say something sharp enough to finally make them understand, when the cafe door swung open again. My uncle walked in. His arrival felt like a disruption, a crack in the already tense atmosphere. He approached our table, giving me a stiff, uncertain nod before turning to my mom and sister. "Everything okay here?" he asked, trying to sound casual, though there was an obvious edge of concern. It wasn't just the question that hit me, it was the timing. How many times had my family depended on someone else to swoop in whenever things became uncomfortable? Whenever the truth became too heavy for them to face? How often had they dodged real conversations by letting someone else distract or deter the moment? "I'm fine," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "Everything is just perfect." My mom's expression faltered. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak but closed it again, looking lost. And in that moment I realized something. If I kept waiting for my family to fix things, I'd be waiting forever. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. "I've had enough," I said as I stood. "I've been trying to make this work for years, and you keep brushing me aside like it means nothing. I'm done." For a second, no one moved. My uncle looked confused, glancing between me and my mom. My sister narrowed her eyes, ready to defend herself, but I didn't give her the chance. "You don't get to decide what matters to me anymore," I continued, steady but emotional. "I'm not going to keep trying when none of you care enough to meet me halfway, so figure this out without me." And with that, I walked out. The cold air outside hit my skin, but the chill inside me was much deeper. I didn't look back. Part of me felt relieved, like years of emotional weight had finally loosened their grip. But another part felt hollow, empty. Was this truly the end? Would my family shrug this off like every other time, or would they finally realize how deeply they had hurt me? The days afterward were brutal. Every time I checked my phone, I hoped for something, anything, a message, a call, even a simple "Are you okay?" But there was nothing. They moved on as if I'd never mattered. and I was left with that familiar ache, wondering if anything would ever change. Then, almost a week later, my sister finally messaged me, "Sure, but I don't think you understand what you've done." Her words stung. Of course I understood. She was the one who never did. She chose convenience over family repeatedly. I didn't reply. I only stared at the screen, the old anger rising again. As I paced my apartment, the truth hit me harder than I expected. I was clinging to the hope of a family that no longer existed. They had built their own lives, their own version of what family meant, and somewhere along the way, I stopped fitting into it. I tried to distract myself, threw myself into work, spent time with friends, laughed at the right moments. But the emptiness lingered. The hurt stayed sharp, and every thought of my family tightened that old knot in my chest. Then, one afternoon, my mom called. I hesitated before answering, bitterness still fresh, but something inside me whispered that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Hey." Her voice was soft, fragile. "Can we talk?" I didn't know what she was going to say. Part of me wanted to shut her out, protect myself from more disappointment. But the part of me that still cared, that part answered, "Yeah, we can talk." She took a shaky breath. I don't even know where to start. I've been thinking a lot about Thanksgiving, about everything, and I know I messed up. We messed up. We pushed you away, and I'm so sorry. Her apology hit me harder than I wanted it to. After all this time, after all the silence, I didn't know what to feel. "Mom," I began, but she cut me off. "I'm not asking you to forgive us right now," she said quickly, voice trembling. "I just need you to know that we see it now. What we die. And we want to fix it. But only if you want to." There it was, the acknowledgement I'd been craving for years. But apologies alone weren't enough. I needed proof that things could be different, that this wouldn't be another cycle of empty promises. "I don't think I can just forgive everything overnight," I said. "But maybe we can try. Slowly." "Of course," she said, and I could hear the sincerity. "However long it takes." It wasn't a magical reunion, no dramatic tears, no instant healing. But it was a beginning, a chance to rebuild, brick by broken brick. And when I hung up, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. But I also knew something else. I was still unsure. Was this real change, or another temporary moment of guilt? Was I opening the door to healing, or to getting hurt all over again? That's the question that stuck with me. So now I'm turning it over to you. If you were in my shoes, would you give your family another chance and try to rebuild what's been shattered? Or would you walk away, finally put up those walls and choose peace over pain? Let me know in the comments. Should OP give them the chance to make things right, or move on for good? The answer isn't simple, but maybe your perspective will help.